It's no secret that Baldur's Gate 3 is shaping up to be an absolutely massive game, boasting at least 75 hours of playtime in just one single playthrough, and over 200 if you're looking to complete it. It's no surprise that with this much content, there will be a lot of aspects that are overlooked and just not outright handed to you. That's probably what led you to click on this video and what I'm here to help you with. Here are my 15 tips to help you gain the advantage in Baldur's Gate 3. High ground can give you crazy advantage. High ground gives you a +2 damage bonus to all ranged attack rolls and can extend the max range of your attacks. Beyond that, it can make you a harder target to hit as your enemies have to aim upward or move to a location where they can actually get line of sight. And lastly, high ground gives you advantage rolls when entering combat, boosting the potential for higher damage in your opening attack. Understanding actions and bonus actions. There's a huge difference between actions and bonus actions, and it's important to know the difference. Each turn you'll be allowed one action and one bonus action. Actions are typically things like attacks or spell casts and are marked with a green circle at the bottom of the tooltip. You're limited to one action per turn, so plan accordingly to make the most out of your turn. Bonus actions are usually secondary actions like jumping or drinking a potion. Even though they're classified as secondary options, there's a list of incredibly powerful bonus actions such as Healing Word that can allow you to revive an incapacitated ally while not feeling like you completely wasted your turn. Do not underestimate bonus actions. These can certainly turn the tide of battle for you and your party and are marked with an amber triangle in the tooltips. Cantrips versus spells. Similar to actions and bonus actions, cantrips and spells are important in understanding the differences between them, especially if your character is a caster such as a cleric or a warlock. Spells are often high value actions that typically have a higher minimum damage threshold and come at the cost of a level 1 or level 2 spell slot. In the beginning, you only have 2 spell slots, so utilize them wisely. Spell slots typically can only be replenished after a long rest, and the exception to this rule are warlocks. They only require a short rest. Spells aren't limited to damage either. They can also come in the form of terrain manipulation, buffs, and much more. Again, use these sparingly, especially since most casters have a decent library of cantrips at their disposal. Okay, so what are cantrips? Cantrips are essentially spells that don't require any spell slots to cast. They usually require one action to use and come in an array of different forms, from conjuring a hand to reach faraway items for you or blessing your ally with an extra d4 to roll for a skill check. These somewhat innocuous abilities can turn the tides of certain instances, and their uses aren't limited to combat. Do not underestimate the utility of cantrips and the fact that they're basically free. Abuse the hell out of them. There are a few damaging cantrips, but they have the opportunity to dish out as little as 1 damage, so they can be a bit of a gamble at times, but useful nonetheless. Positioning is key. I mentioned high ground earlier in this video, and while that is a huge way to get advantage over your enemies, there are numerous other ways you can position yourself in the battlefield, even before you engage in combat. The first step to understanding where you should position yourself begins with your own class. Knowing your class's preference and actions can give you a good idea on where to stand. If you're a ranger, consider the high ground above your enemy so you can pop out from cover, rain down on them with your +2 high ground bonus, then fall back into the cover of the terrain you're standing on. Another great example would be the rogue class. Positioning yourself near cover can grant a higher success in stealthing between turns and will be vital to maximizing your class's potential. Consider this the next time you boot up BG3 and think to yourself, is this a smart move, before committing? Picking the correct party member for dialogue. There will often be times where pieces of dialogue will have an opportunity for a skill check that relies on a dice roll plus any bonuses of your character to pass or fail your selection. Truthfully, unless you've played the instance many times over or save scummed your way into a redo, you're likely not going to know which character to enter dialogue with. The default I typically rely on is to choose the party member with the most Riz, aka Charisma. This is your safest bet. However, if you're an astute individual, you may see a group of, say, druids to interact with, and you happen to have one in your party. You may consider engaging with them via this party member. This may open up a secret dialogue option no other party member would have. It's not the biggest deal since most anybody can theoretically have your preferred outcome, but it may benefit you to think before you speak. Multiplayer is really only beneficial if you have a group to play with. Now, I feel like this goes without saying with any multiplayer RPG, but especially BG3 since all loot is shared and another person may not have your best interests in mind. I would actually bet that most randoms joining your game don't. There are a lot of trolls out there, and throwing an unknown into your mix may not provide you with your desired experience. Bottom line, just stick to people you know, unless you enjoy the chaos. Don't make choices like you would any other RPG. Baldur's Gate can make you regret your actions, and there are no redos unless you're scumming or backtracking. Kind of in the same vein of the previous two tips, be methodical about your decisions. This can be as little as choosing which path to walk down. In 5e, literally anything can happen, and very similar rules apply here. There are various crates to loot and switches to pull in the lands of Faerun, and some of these may have unfavorable outcomes. In my experience, negative outcomes are far less in BG3 than 5e, and are all predetermined, so it'll ensure you won't make the same mistake twice. Just be aware that maybe not everything should be touched or looted. You can pick up and throw just about anything. This is one of the most fun actions in BG3's arsenal, in my opinion. Most items are able to be manipulated and used however you see fit. You can stack boxes to make the ultimate high ground, or you can bash the target with the chair they were just sitting in. Play around with it and see all that's possible with the seemingly useless items all around BG3. Build a party with variety. What's better than one cleric? Well, 4 clerics. That's right, your party will never die because they have endless healing. While this may be a fun idea for a later video, 4 clerics is limiting yourself to many things and will ultimately be a bad choice when starting out in BG3. It's much smarter to diversify your party when building out your crew. There are plenty of classes and companions to choose from, so do just that. You can build a party centered around a specific playstyle like stealth, or you could go more broad and allow yourself the security of having a dedicated member for any event that may arise in your playthrough. Bottom line, build your party by selecting those who you think will benefit you the most, or those you feel most drawn to. This very well may include using 4 clerics, but I doubt it. Long rests are crucial. Long rests can be used anywhere outside of combat if you're in a safe area. I briefly mentioned resting when talking about spells, but only mentioned one important. There are many reasons to take a long rest. Long resting will take you to your camp, where you'll find all your gathered party members whether they're in your party or not. This is a good time to rethink who you want in your party, as well as opening up dialogue with anyone willing to talk to you. Those in that category are typically marked with an exclamation point over their head. Beyond party members and gaining back spell slots, the camp offers a chest for each non-NPC character to store their personal valuables. Whether it's an item you don't want sold but also don't want to carry yet, or an item you aren't high enough level to wield, these chests have limitless space, at least in early access, so you never need to worry about item ultimatums. Personal chests are also nice for those choosing to play with random people. It'll give you a sense of security over personal belongings. The last thing long rests will eventually do for you are unique cutscenes. There are plenty of cutscenes linked to long rests, beginning with the very first one you take. These offer a subplot to whatever you got going on in the moment, and will eventually lead you to gaining your first illithid power. A power that's class specific that is granted to you basically all because you have an eyeball worm. Differences between long rests and short rests. Since I pretty much just went over everything about long rests, well, what are short rests and how can you best use them? First off, you only get 2 short rests for every long rest, so choose wisely when you decide to use them. Short rests are similar to long rests in that they operate outside of combat and grant you both health and spell slots. The caveat here is that they may not fully heal you, nor grant you all of your spell slots. If you're a higher level and have very low health, you probably aren't likely to be fully healed. On top of that, not all used up spells will be recovered. The tooltips are there for a reason. Each spell will inform you whether they will be recovered during a short rest or not, so be sure to read before you rest. Sometimes the best option isn't an offensive one. This is one that I had to learn personally. I used the same mentality when playing games like Pokemon, where I could just attack unrelentingly and strong arm my way to victory. This is definitely not the case in BG3. Strategy is a huge element in this game that cannot go unchecked, especially in early access where your max character level is 5 and you encounter several enemies above that. I know I kinda covered this in positioning, but I think it's useful information separate from that since it has to do more with personal instincts and impulses. Scrolls are crazy useful as well as easy to come by. You can buy them at a shop or just find them all over Faerun by searching every box or barrel you come across. They come in a variety of forms and can be useful for things like changing the terrain of the battlefield, making the enemy think twice before using a certain path. There's also a myriad of damaging scrolls as well. These are pretty powerful spells and only have one use to them, so choose when to use them wisely. Spend some time shopping around at the various traders. So many items you'd never come across naturally can be found in the trader shops. I encourage you to spend time perusing the offered items at each vendor to further explore what routes you can take in this game. For example, I didn't know that there were different types of one-use arrows for the ranger. From explosive to poison, this can amplify your party's strength and give you a possible upper hand in combat. Another thing you may find with the traders is that you seemingly can't split stacks. This is entirely untrue, but it's kind of hidden how you'd fix this. There's a toggle switch in the top middle of the shop screen that switches between shop and barter. By default, it's on shop, so by switching to barter, you see a new middleman menu pop up, allowing you to now drag over a desired item and only select what you need. The last tip I have for you is to maximize your character's actions. I've kind of gone over this a few times throughout this video, but I really just want to hammer home that there are so many options when it comes to combat, or even exploration in BG3. This is something that took me a little while as a new player to understand. Actions versus bonus actions, cantrips versus spells, rolls, checks, it can all be overwhelming. Combat is turn-based, so you can take your time to make a strategic play and allow yourself to think out and exhaust all possible options before making a final decision. But don't take too long if you're playing with a few friends, they might get slightly irritated with you. All of my experience is coming from the early access version of the game, so I may need to update this list in the future, but for now it should all be relevant. I hope these tips help you excel and understand BG3 better, and please like the video and subscribe since I'll have plenty more content to come out once the game is fully released. But until then, goodbye friends.